Hello aspirants, looking at current affairs for 26th July. The news items picked up from the Hindu newspaper are these 9. We'll look at them in detail. The first one, tampered computers gave NEET applicants a lifeline. So this is regarding NEET examination. We have seen various controversies and this exam has been in news quite often. We have already discussed about what is NEET. You should already know about it. National Eligibility Cum Entrance Test. This is the test which is to be taken at the national level all over India for admissions to postgraduate medical courses as such. Some institutes of national importance like AIIMS, etc. are exempted from this because they have been established separately under separate acts. Apart from that, all postgraduate medical courses exams, entrance exam is through this one common exam. So this exam which was held in November 2016, now there are cases which have been filed. Crime branch of Delhi Police has filed charge sheet against officials of Prometic Testing Private Limited. This was the body which was hired by National Board of Examinations to conduct the NEET exam. It's an online exam, so this exam was conducted by this authority, by this company, Prometic Testing Private Limited, and the computers here at the examination centers managed by Prometic, there in this charge sheet it is mentioned that select computers were installed with remote screen sharing software AMI. So this was allowing solvers outside to select the correct answer for the students. So such kind of malpractices were seen as such and the case has been registered as such. Also, some candidates got access to internet by connecting remotely to another computer outside the examination hall. This has also been seen. Also, there are probabilities that even officials of National Board of Examination and Prometics are involved in this scam. Also, a list of 500 students has been prepared as in a supplementary charge sheet who had availed this corrupt activity actually. So they had paid around 2.5 to 3 lakh rupees to access the internet during the exam. Also, there is one case in which a person was involved. This was also named in the charge sheet. He was the examiner, the staff there. He had provided a chit in which he had written the answers. So slips with answers were left for select candidates also. So such activities are seen, and it is said that Prometic actually is an American company which was hired. Again, this is also a question raised that why NBE contracted Prometic without having initiated a bid, a tender for it. So why there was no tender initiated, one question, and Prometic itself had subcontracted this tests to another company, CMS IT Services Private Limited. And then again that was subcontracted to local vendors for staff at various examination centers. So this is the whole scam as such which is coming forth. Even the whistleblower Dr. Anand Rai, who was the one who brought out the entire Vyapam scam in the open in Madhya Pradesh, he is also one of the complainants in this present case against NEET. So this is how the scheme unfolded, how candidates involved in the scam through a switch here had either access to the internet or were controlled by computers outside the examination hall with the connivance of the administrators here. So this is there. Also the Vyapam scam which is spoken of here. This is a scam of Madhya Pradesh government as such which was on a very huge scale. So in the state of Madhya Pradesh there is this government organization called Madhya Pradesh Professional Examination Board, which in Hindi, the Vyapam is actually the Hindu acronym for this body. It's called Vyavsaik Pariksha Mandal. So this Vyapam had been involved in a scam. It was conducting examinations, entrance exams to government jobs or to even institutions, educational institutions of the state government. And in these entrance exams, at least 13 of the entrance exams which were conducted by this body, there were cases of malpractices on a similar lines seen here, and through the whistleblower here actually the whole thing came to light. It was actually 1990s that such discrepancies were witnessed, but later as the scam unfolded by 2013 there were huge number of people who were arrested too in these cases. Also with respect to this case there were many deaths which were recorded as well of people who were involved investigating this case or involved in this case as such. But the entire scam has unfolded as such. Even the ex-education minister of Madhya Pradesh has been arrested in this scam. More than 2,000 people have been arrested, students as such. Then the next news item is Government may not split Air India for stake sale. So this we had seen that Indigo actually, the low-cost air carrier, the budget carrier of India, the largest low-cost carrier of India as such, had expressed interest that it wants to buy stake in Air India. But it had clearly mentioned that it was interested in Air India's foreign operations. So this was its interest. So the central government official here on condition of anonymity has stated that government has no intention to split Air India. Air India earlier was splitted. It was Indian Airlines and Air India, two entities which were merged actually. So they were separate as such. One was taking care of international operations and one was for domestic flying and even in neighboring countries. So this merger which has taken place, now if the split takes place and the disinvestment is initiated, then the entire disinvestment process may become unattractive. So the government does not want to sell off lucrative assets of Air India separately. So this, it has been clarified. Then the entire disinvestment would become very tricky. So here it's given in 2007, the two airline operations were merged into a single entity. Earlier called NASIL, National Aviation Company of India Limited, and later renamed Air India Limited. So this is there. Also this merger decision as such is also said to have caused the various problems for Air India as such too, because post 2006-07 it has never posted net profit as such. So this is also highlighted. So operational profits, we have seen operational profits have been shown by Air India in recent years, but then net profit overall it is having a huge debt and it is burdened. Then the next news item is major rivers in spate in Orissa. So this is regarding heavy rains in Orissa and the catchment areas of various rivers like Baitarani River, which is located here. If you can see, here it is. This is the Baitarani River here. And even the Subarnarekha River. The Subarnarekha River is here. Then also Burhabalang, Jalaka rivers, these are flowing above danger mark and there are flood situations here in Orissa in various districts, Bhadrak, Jajpur district up here. So flood-like situations are found here also. So you should again know various rivers. The prominent river of Orissa is of course Mahanadi River located here, but then there are other rivers also you should know. Brahmani River located here, the Rushikulya. Rushikulya is famous. The beach here is famous for olive ridley turtles. So Rushikulya River is located here. These are the other rivers of Orissa. Then the next news item is a half-kilometer manned sea dive in the making. So the National Institute of Ocean Technology has come up with a plan. Actually, it's working on this mission to send a researcher in a spherical titanium submersible vehicle. So it will go 500 meters under the Indian Ocean as such to have an observation of the life forms down there and even precious metals. So this is the objective. This is the initial mission of going only up to 500 meters, half a kilometer, but later once this is successful, the larger mission is actually to send a 3-member team in a titanium sphere 6,000 meters into the sea. So then it will be possible to even scout for little known life forms and precious metals. So this is an initial mission. For the initial mission, it has been in talks with BHEL, Bharat Heavy Electricals Limited, a PSU, and it has said that BHEL has said that it will be able to build this titanium sphere capable of a 500-meter dive. But for the larger mission, actually, it is expected that India may not have the capability. So there are splits in the viewpoints as such of experts here. But then this is a proposal which has been brought forth. Of course, it will go to the Union Cabinet for clearance. The cost of this will also be around 450 crores, which is comparable to Mars orbiter missions cost. So this is also stated. Even ISRO's help is being taken. The NIOT director says that they have been in talks with ISRO also on many aspects of the design of this as such are matching with the space missions as such, like oxygen filtration which would be required as such. So this is the submersible plant. Titanium is the metal which is being used here for this purpose, material used for this purpose, because it can withstand enormous pressure of water and great depths. So this is the reason why titanium is being used as such. So here it says the glass windows would be there which will allow them to observe and collect samples also using robotic arms as when the larger mission is put into effect. So this is there. So there are various resources under the ocean, on the ocean surface too, on the ocean bed, and also there are minerals located down there. So that resources, if they are within the exclusive economic zone, then of course countries have right to access, and even India has been given right to explore Indian Ocean region for polymetallic nodules, as they are called. Then the next news item is in the age of data. So this is regarding data privacy, one issue, and also the data which should stay, the ownership of the data as such, personal data, how secure can it be? So data security and data privacy, both are important concerns, because various prominent apps as such too, and organizations like Facebook, WhatsApp, they have more than 200 million active users in India. So all the data of these users, they are actually stored in their servers abroad. So they have, the individuals themselves have limited control over how this data is collected from them and how it is used. So in many cases, there is even dispute of ownership. So on your own personal information, you don't have access. Like in case of Apple, we had seen that Apple does not provide access to the user's own data to be shared with anybody else. So you also cannot do that yourself. So that is there. So this is a concern here which is being spoken of, and in that context again, so one question is how much you have access to your data and how much privacy you are provided with respect to your data, plus how secure is your data, because there are risks of cyber attacks. So how companies will be ensuring that they keep your personal data secure, because this is an important aspect. If your data is under the risk of cyber attacks, then how can your privacy be upheld? So that is the question being raised here, and even we have discussed this. Nandan Nilekani had also proposed that there should be a data protection law which should be brought in, a stringent data protection law in which users have control over their data. Right? So European Union has actually gone ahead and is going to implement this general data protection regulation, which will come into effect next year. So from May 2018, it will be effective all across Europe, and this will impose a stiff penalty. You can imagine the penalty can be up to 4% of the company's worldwide turnover if there is a breach. So if there is a breach of data, this much will be the penalty, maximum penalty which can be imposed. 4% of worldwide turnover, which will be huge, billions and billions of dollars. So for prominent companies actually. So this is the general data protection regulation of European Union. This is there. Also, they will have to ensure that even their vendors will be fully compliant with general data protection regulation. So they'll be liable for that too. Vendors which are running business on their platforms. Then the next news item is Sri Lanka clears revised deal for Hambantota port. So the Sri Lankan government has revised the deal for Chinese-built port Hambantota. So this is a prominent port in Sri Lanka. You can see this is the island nation here. So this is the Hambantota port lying here. Colombo, the capital, and the port here is also there, in which some Chinese investment in this region is there as well. Trincomalee port, this is the region where India is investing. So Sri Lanka has been saying that we are attracting investment from all regions. So we are open to all. India can also invest. So it has been seeking Indian investment as well. Now here the concern is one more thing. Hambantota is part of Belt and Road Initiative, or what was earlier called OBOR Initiative, One Belt One Road Initiative of China. So this is Hambantota port here, and China has given major investment up here, and it is in the form of loans at prominent interest rate. So that results in a huge burden on Sri Lankan government as well. And this port project was initiated under the former President Mahinda Rajapaksa. Even the port is named after him. So this port as such developed is named. So here you can see the details given. So presently what the Sri Lankan present government has done is that presently it is Maithripala Sirisena and Ranil Wickremesinghe government. So it was called as a white elephant as such, the project of Hambantota, because it has resulted in a huge debt which has accumulated for Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka owes $8 billion in debt to China. So this is the case here. What was decided in late 2016 was that 80% stake of this port which has been developed, Hambantota port, will be provided to Chinese company. So this, under the agreement, it was decided that for a 99-year lease, the amount which the company will have to pay was $1.12 billion. So now this has been revised and it has been stated that 70% of stake in the port will be sold off for $1.12 billion. So this final approval has now come to this deal as such. So the deal has been revised now. So this is the detail here. So it is said that now this modified agreement will be more profitable to Sri Lanka. So overall for Hambantota port, it is $1.12 billion only which has been invested, the debt which it owes to China, Sri Lanka owes to China. But overall, over the period of time, this is the amount of debt which is accumulated. Also, it has clarified that under the revised agreement that Sri Lanka will manage the security of Hambantota port. The Hambantota port will not have any naval ship, including Chinese ones, making a port of call except with permission. So without permission, nobody can make port of call here. So this aspect is being clarified here, because even India specifically had raised its concerns with respect to Chinese investment, saying that China is investing, but then it is resulting in the loan becoming unsustainable for the developing nations here. Plus also it has stated that this port can be used as a military naval base. So these concerns of India have now been addressed. So this has been stated that security of the port will be with Sri Lanka only, not with China. So this is there. The details here are given. You can see this is why Hambantota is prominent, because it lies across the important international trade routes. These are major shipping routes which are used as such too. So this is there. Then this is in the Indonesia-Malaysia region to Malacca Strait. So here you can see Gwadar port is being developed by China in Pakistan, Hambantota in Sri Lanka, and even Chittagong port in Myanmar. So in Iran, we are developing, India is developing the port, the Chabahar port. Then here in Sri Lanka, we are involved in the Trincomalee port, though we are not developing the port, but some projects here have been taken by India. Plus here in Myanmar also we are developing this Sittwe port to give us access, direct access from Kolkata to Sittwe, and then direct access to northeastern India. The country here is Bangladesh, this is Myanmar. So this is the Sittwe port of India. Then this is regarding the construction of Hambantota, which started in 2008, and 3 berths are now opened as such too, and the amount of funding investment put in this is around phase 1 is around $361 million and second phase is $750 million. So it comes to around $1.12 billion overall, and the funding has been provided 85% by Chinese Exim Bank, and Sri Lankan Port Authority invested remaining 15%. And presently we are discussing that the agreement which has been done to hand over 70% of the port stake to China. And this is regarding the debt trap too, that Sri Lanka owes more than $8 billion to China in debt. So this debt details are being given as of from 1971 to 2012. In that time frame, assistance provided by China to Sri Lanka was $5.056 billion, and remaining this $4.7 billion amount as such had been provided by China to Sri Lanka in the time of Mahendra Rajapaksa, the former president of Sri Lanka, during whose time this port project was initiated. So 94% of this amount as such came during that time. So China has committed to further funding of another $2.18 billion after 2012. So this total loan as such goes to this much with high rate of interest. So this is a concern. Then next is transfer unclaimed accruals to fund, IRDA. So this unclaimed funds as such will go to a fund which has been established by the central government. It was announced by the center in the 2015-16 budget. Union Finance Minister Mr. Arun Jaitley had announced it, and this Senior Citizen Welfare Fund, as it is called, initially it was only for Employee Provident Fund and Public Provident Fund accounts. So if they stay unclaimed for 10 years, such unclaimed amounts should be transferred to this fund. So this was the original proposal, but later it has been expanded to include also other small savings schemes where there are unclaimed deposits, and now the Insurance Regulatory and Development Authority of India has given this direction that all insurance companies that have unclaimed amounts of policy holders, they cannot retain it but will have to provide it to the Senior Citizen Welfare Fund. They'll have to transfer this amount on or before 1st March 2018. So this is the notification that from now on, if there is any unclaimed amount of any policy holder for more than 10 years as on September 30, 2017. So this will become effective as such now, and that will have to be transferred to this fund, Senior Citizen Welfare Fund. There had been concerns raised that how can government acquisites this amount, because all these insurance provisions which are there, or even Public Provident Fund, Employee Provident Fund, these are various acts under which they function. So government has to make provisions that they have to be brought into this fund through amendments to these various acts. So of course, and also government has given provision that up to 25 years after they have been transferred to this fund too, it can be claimed as such by the policy holder. But after that, there will be no claim that will be possible. So this is the detail you can see provided here as well. There is a huge amount of money which stay unclaimed. So you can see the Minister of State for Finance has informed the Lok Sabha that unclaimed deposits as on 31st March 2016 with insurers, with various insurance companies, both life and non-life insurance companies, total 11,725.45 crore. And this has sharply risen in the previous year. Means it was earlier only 7,277.23 crores. Now it is 11,000. So this is the huge amount of money which will now be transferred to Senior Citizen Welfare Fund, which will be used for welfare of senior citizens, even agricultural farmers and BPL people belonging to the BPL category. So this is the detail given here. When it was announced too, there were issues raised about legality of such an act, and also the trade unions had raised concerns and the insurance bodies that this belongs to the company, to the holder as such. So how can it be taken over by the government? But this has been gone ahead with. Then next is India's concerns slowing RCEP talks. So this is regarding Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership negotiations which are going on. We have been discussing it for last few days. So these negotiations presently ongoing in Hyderabad. It has been revealed, of course they are secret talks, but it has been revealed as such that India has concerns, because India would be adversely affected, because already it has a huge trade deficit with China and also with other countries in RCEP like Asian nations, Japan, Korea. We have a huge deficit. So already we are in deficit and a huge deficit with China, then RCEP will not be beneficial for India but would adversely affect it. So that is why India wants that non-tariff barriers should be removed as such. So this has to be highlighted by India, is also what the experts say here, that non-tariff barriers, especially in China too, which should be there so that we can have a greater market access to. So non-tariff barriers are not any tariffs, no custom duties etc. imposed, but conditions imposed, like sanitary, phytosanitary measures are non-tariff barrier, that it is not clean, it is having some problems with sanitation as such, and the product is not imported. So such cases are also there with China. We have already seen about basmati rice, that how basmati rice was banned. That was recently discussed during the standoff period too. So that cases are there, non-tariff barriers being imposed as such. So this is there. Another point which is there, that India should also ask for greater market access for its services sector, especially IT and IT enabled services. So this will even address the trade deficit. So you can see the trade deficit as such shown here too. It is also said that India is the third poorest per capita income country in the RCEP nations. So in terms of per capita, of course, because of huge population, the per capita income is not high. Here you can see the trade deficit which we have. So total India's exports to China in 2015-16 were $9 billion worth, and imports were $61.7 billion. So you can see it's a huge trade deficit which we have with China, and we plan to correct it by having three-tiered phasing out of tariffs as such. So this three-tier structure of tariff cuts which is there in Trans-Pacific Partnership 2 as such is what India is proposing at RCEP, but of course it is opposed. RCEP wants a single tariff as such. So let's see how tariff cuts would also work and how the RCEP eventually emerges. Then the last news item is family of Indian Olympian puts up medal for auction. So this is family of Kashaba Jadhav. Kashaba Jadhav was the first Indian who won a medal in Olympics. It was in 1952 Helsinki Olympics in Europe where he won a bronze medal in wrestling. So this was the first Indian Olympic medal in individual sport. Before that we had won gold in a team sport, that is hockey. So hockey gold was already there. The hockey team led by Balbir Singh had won its first gold also in 1948 London Olympics. So this is there. Presently the news is that family of Kashaba Jadhav in Satara, Maharashtra, they have put his medal for auction. And they say this money would be used to build a wrestling academy in the honor of Mr. Kashaba Jadhav. So this plan was there, proposed by, initiated by the Maharashtra government 8 years ago in 2013. Even around 2 crore rupees was sanctioned for the project too, but it did not take a final shape. And now this is the initiative which the son of Kashaba Jadhav is taking, Mr. Ranjit Jadhav. He says that my father was an introvert and never marketed his achievements. He says he was alive till 1984, but the government didn't felicitate him with the Arjuna Award. And he was given a Arjuna Award 16 years after his death. So he asks, why can't we honor accomplished people when they are alive? So this is a question being raised by him. He is also the only Olympian, Mr. Kashaba Jadhav is the only Olympian who has not been awarded Padma Award. So this is the detail about him. So that is it. These are the news items. Thank you.